Welcome to another journey into the mysteries that lie beneath the surface of our everyday experience. I'm your guide through the quiet corridors of science and wonder, and tonight we're exploring something that might change how you think about the conversations happening inside your own mind. Picture this. Every night, as you drift into sleep, your brain begins transmitting messages using a code so sophisticated that researchers are only now beginning to explore its patterns. These aren't the random firings of a resting mind. They appear to be structured communications flowing between different regions of your brain, forming patterns that some scientists believe may echo fundamental principles found in quantum mechanics. What if I told you that your dreams might be more than just the brain's way of processing the day's events? What if they could offer a glimpse into a communication system so elegant and precise that certain researchers propose it might operate in ways loosely comparable to processes seen at the subatomic level? This isn't science fiction. It's part of the emerging, highly speculative frontier often referred to as quantum neuroscience, and it's encouraging new conversations about consciousness that we never imagined possible. As you settle in for this exploration, I want you to consider something that might feel a little unsettling at first. Every thought you've ever had, every dream you've experienced, every moment of awareness might involve processes unfolding within the intricate architecture of your brain. Processes that some theories suggest could share aspects with the deeper fabric of the universe itself. These ideas remain controversial, but they invite a fascinating lens through which to view the mystery of consciousness. Tonight, we're going to journey through the looking glass of consciousness, where the boundaries between mind and matter become beautifully blurred in theory. We'll explore how your brain might, according to certain interpretations, use quantum-like effects to create the unified experience of being you. We'll look at the possibility that your dreams represent encoded messages moving through microscopic structures that some researchers believe may behave in ways similar to biological quantum processes. And we'll touch on work suggesting that consciousness itself might, at least metaphorically, reflect principles found in quantum systems. But before we dive deeper into this speculative realm, let me share something that will help frame everything we're about to explore together. The human brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others through synapses. That's roughly 100 trillion connections, creating a network more complex than the entire internet. Yet somehow, from this vast web of electrical and chemical activity emerges something singular and unified: your conscious experience. This is what neuroscientists call the binding problem. How does the brain take all these separate processes, occurring in different regions at different times, and weave them into the seamless tapestry of consciousness? How do you experience yourself as one unified being rather than a collection of disconnected sensations, thoughts, and memories? For decades, scientists have struggled with this question using only classical models of physics. But recently, a small but growing number of researchers have begun to wonder if certain quantum principles, like particles existing in multiple states simultaneously or becoming correlated over distances, might offer fresh ways to think about this mystery. These ideas remain highly debated, but they open up a compelling space for exploration. Take a moment to breathe deeply and consider what this might mean. As you listen to these words, it's possible, according to some theoretical models, that quantum-like processes could be helping coordinate the activity of billions of neurons, contributing to the unified experience of understanding and presence. The very fact that you can follow a complex train of thought, hold multiple ideas simultaneously, and experience them as parts of a coherent whole may someday be linked to mechanisms we're only beginning to detect and interpret. Let's begin our journey in one of the most unlikely places, inside the microscopic tubes that give your neurons their structure. These are called microtubules, and they're about to become the stars of our story. Imagine, if you will, the scaffolding inside a great cathedral. These support beams aren't just holding up the roof, they're also guiding a hidden resonance, vibrating at frequencies that create harmonies you can feel but cannot quite hear. This is what microtubules might be doing inside every neuron in your brain, according to certain theories. Microtubules are tiny hollow tubes made of protein, and they're found in virtually every cell in your body. But in neurons, they may play an especially interesting role. According to a hypothesis proposed by physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, these microscopic structures could be part of a system where quantum processes interact with neural activity. This model, called orchestrated objective reduction, suggests that consciousness doesn't emerge solely from the classical firing of neurons, but may involve quantum-scale events occurring within microtubules. Think of it this way: if neurons are like the instruments in an orchestra, microtubules might act as an underlying rhythm section, guiding the performance through rapid, highly organized processes that complement classical brain activity. This remains a speculative framework, but it continues to inspire new research. Recent experiments at Wellesley College have added fresh interest to this discussion. Researchers found that when rats were given drugs that bind to microtubules, something unexpected occurred. It took slightly longer for the animals to lose consciousness under anesthesia. While this doesn't prove any quantum theory of consciousness, it does raise intriguing questions about how microtubules might contribute to the brain's overall functioning. Some researchers, including Mike Wiest, have suggested that if future studies confirm a quantum component to consciousness, it could open a new chapter in understanding the mind. These ideas remain exploratory, but they highlight how much we still have to learn about the structures inside our own brains. Let's pause for a moment and let that sink in. You are, quite possibly, a walking, thinking biological system whose consciousness emerges from layers of complexity we're only beginning to understand. The awareness that allows you to contemplate your place in the universe might involve processes occurring on scales smaller than anything visible to the naked eye, processes that may share intriguing parallels with the quantum world. But how exactly could this work? How might subtle quantum effects in tiny microtubules contribute to the rich, complex experience of human consciousness? One of the theories often discussed involves quantum entanglement. When particles become entangled, they form a connected system where the state of one is correlated with the state of another, no matter the distance. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance, and although it remains mysterious, entanglement is a well-established feature of quantum physics. Some interpretations suggest that if certain quantum correlations could exist within the brain, even briefly or in limited forms, they might help explain how different aspects of our experience come together so seamlessly. This remains an open question in science, but it offers a compelling metaphor for understanding the unity of consciousness. Imagine your brain as a vast orchestra, but instead of musicians reading sheet music and following a conductor's baton, each instrument is connected through subtle correlations. The result would be a performance of remarkable coordination and harmony, where every note and rhythm emerges from deep interconnection. These ideas remain speculative, but they invite a profound sense of wonder. If consciousness does involve quantum-like coherence in some form, then you may be connected to the fundamental nature of reality in ways that go far beyond ordinary perception. You are not separate from the quantum universe. You are one of its many expressions. As we explore these possibilities together, I invite you to notice how they resonate with your own inner life. Have you ever had moments where everything seemed to click into place, where scattered thoughts suddenly formed a coherent pattern, or insights that appeared fully formed, as if arriving from nowhere? These experiences might someday be better understood through discoveries that link classical and quantum aspects of brain function. Now, let's step into one of the most fascinating landscapes of human experience, the realm of dreams. Every night, as your conscious mind settles into rest, something remarkable begins to unfold. Your brain doesn't simply power down like a computer entering sleep mode. It shifts into a different form of processing, one that might reveal deeper patterns underlying consciousness itself. Recent research has revealed something extraordinary about how different regions of the brain communicate. Scientists have discovered that brain waves in different frequency bands don't just carry information, they may encode it in patterns that resemble binary logic, the fundamental language of computers. When researchers analysed the alpha waves produced by each hemisphere, they found a surprising pattern. The correlations between these waves alternated between states of strong synchronization and complete desynchronization, switching rapidly back and forth. When mapped over time, this sequence resembles binary code, on and off, 1 and 0, synchronized and unsynchronized. Think about what this might imply. Your brain could be using patterns that loosely resemble the logic found in digital systems, but with a complexity and adaptability far beyond silicon circuits. Instead of computer chips, it may be relying on the dynamic interactions of neurons and, according to some speculative models, the subtle influences of quantum-scale events. This doesn't mean the brain is literally a quantum computer in the technological sense, but it suggests that patterns of information processing during sleep may involve layers of organization we're only beginning to appreciate. Now, consider what happens during REM sleep, the stage where the most vivid dreaming occurs. During this time, your visual cortex becomes highly active, almost as active as when you're awake, yet your eyes are closed and no external imagery is entering your mind. So where do these rich, lifelike dreams come from? Some interpretations propose that during dreams, your brain may access information stored in ways that differ from waking consciousness, potentially involving deeply interconnected networks, and according to some theories, subtle quantum-like dynamics. Dreams may represent moments where different layers of brain activity communicate more freely, generating insights, creative connections, and symbolic experiences that waking logic might not easily permit. Dream logic allows impossible things to happen without question. You may fly, meet familiar strangers, or explore shifting landscapes that follow their own rules. While we experience these scenes as real during the dream, they often dissolve into impossibility upon waking. This fluid, non-linear logic shares intriguing parallels with how quantum systems explore multiple possibilities before settling into definite outcomes. Dreams often remix your experiences, combining them in unexpected ways. Many famous creative breakthroughs, from Kekulé's benzene ring to inspirations recorded by inventors and artists, have reportedly emerged from dreams. This ability to reorganize information may involve forms of processing that differ significantly from waking thought. As you drift through these ideas, Imagine what it might feel like to witness the hidden processes underlying your own inner world. Picture the billions of microtubules in your brain, each one contributing to complex rhythms of activity. Picture patterns flowing between hemispheres, carrying information in ways that echo deeper structures of nature. This isn't just an abstract scientific exercise. It may someday reflect aspects of what's happening inside your mind as you process these words, form thoughts, and experience the unified stream of consciousness that makes you uniquely you. While much of this remains unproven, the research continues to move in fascinating directions. Scientists are developing technologies that may one day allow real-time communication with dreaming minds, offering glimpses into inner worlds that have long remained hidden. As we continue our journey into the quantum landscape of consciousness, we'll explore how these patterns of communication might link not only different regions of your brain, but also the deeper structures of reality itself. Some researchers imagine consciousness as a kind of interconnected network, where individual awareness participates in larger patterns of information and meaning. But first, let's take a moment to appreciate the profound mystery of your own awareness. Right now, as you listen to these words, subtle and still not fully understood processes are unfolding in your brain that we're only beginning to understand. Patterns of electrical and biological activity are flowing between your hemispheres. Microtubules are contributing to computations that create the seamless experience of being you. You are not just observing the quantum universe. You are part of the universe, becoming aware of itself. One thought, one dream, one moment of consciousness at a time. Human consciousness remains one of the deepest mysteries in science, but we're standing at the threshold of discoveries that might revolutionize our understanding of what it means to be aware, to dream, to think, and to experience the rich tapestry of being human. The internal communication patterns your brain uses to communicate with you might be written in the fundamental language of reality itself. And tonight, as you eventually drift into sleep, your brain will begin its nightly restorative process, processing the day's experiences through mechanisms that connect you to the deeper structures of the cosmos. Your dreams will unfold with their own symbolic logic, exploring possibilities that exist beyond the boundaries of waking logic, carrying messages encoded in the unique language of your mind. The journey into quantum consciousness has only just begun, and the discoveries waiting ahead promise to transform not just our understanding of the mind, but our understanding of our place in the vast, interconnected web of physical reality that we call the universe. Next time, we'll explore how these theoretical quantum-inspired processes in your brain might connect to larger patterns of reality, including dimensions of existence that you're already part of without knowing it. In our exploration of the 11th dimension, where you already exist without knowing it, as we venture deeper into the quantum landscape of consciousness, let's turn our attention to something you experience every moment of your waking life, yet rarely pause to consider: the extraordinary phenomenon of memory. Not just the ability to recall where you left your keys or what you had for breakfast, but the seamless integration of past experiences into present awareness, creating the continuous narrative thread that makes you recognizably you. Recent discoveries in neuroscience suggest that memory might not work the way we've traditionally imagined. Rather than being stored like files in a computer's hard drive, memories might exist as highly distributed biological patterns, accessible through processes that operate beyond the boundaries of classical physics, according to some interpretations. consider for a moment the speed at which you can recall a childhood memory. Someone mentions a particular song, and suddenly you're 8 years old again, standing in your grandmother's kitchen, feeling the texture of her hand-knitted sweater and smelling the particular blend of lavender and vanilla that seemed to follow her everywhere. This instantaneous reconstruction of complex sensory experiences might be possible because the memory isn't stored in one location, but exists as a network-wide pattern distributed across your entire neural network. Some interpretations suggest that when memories are encoded, they create deeply interconnected networks between different regions of your brain. These states would allow information to be accessed holographically, meaning that any part of the network could potentially reconstruct the whole memory. This might explain why memories often return in vivid, multi-sensory detail, and why a single trigger can unlock complex emotional and sensory experiences that feel as real as the present moment. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Researchers studying the effects of anesthesia have made a discovery that might revolutionize our understanding of both memory and consciousness. They found that certain anesthetic drugs appear to work by interacting with microtubules, temporarily altering the connections that might underlie conscious awareness. This isn't merely speculation. When scientists administered drugs that specifically bind to microtubules, they observed measurable delays in the onset of unconsciousness under anesthesia. The implications are profound. Consciousness might depend on maintaining coherent coordination across networks of microtubules. And when this coordination is disrupted, awareness fades. Think about what happens when you're falling asleep naturally. There's often a moment when you're suspended between waking and sleeping, when thoughts become fluid and dreamlike, when the logical connections that normally govern your thinking begin to soften and blur. This transition might reflect the gradual loosening of coordinated brain activity, as the networks that maintain waking consciousness slowly dissolve into the different patterns that characterize sleep. Take a breath for a moment and notice how this idea resonates with your own experience. Have you ever been on the edge of sleep and felt your thoughts becoming strange and disconnected? That liminal state might be a glimpse into the deeper biological foundations of your consciousness, a brief window into the processes that normally operate below the threshold of awareness. During REM sleep, when dreaming is most intense, something fascinating happens to these networks. Rather than shutting down completely, they appear to reorganize into different patterns that might allow access to information that's normally filtered out of waking consciousness. Dreams might be the result of temporary crosstalk between memory networks that don't usually communicate directly. This could explain why dreams often contain impossible combinations of people, places, and events from different periods of your life. In the dream state, information that seems logically disconnected can become intertwined, creating new patterns of meaning and association. Your dreaming brain might be exploring the space of all possible connections between your memories, discovering relationships and insights that linear, classical thinking could never reveal. Recent research has revealed another intriguing aspect of dream consciousness. Scientists have found that people can sometimes communicate with the outside world while lucid dreaming, responding to questions and signals from researchers through predetermined eye movements or other physical signals. This suggests that even in the altered state of dreaming consciousness, some degree of responsiveness to external cues remains intact. Imagine what this might mean for the nature of consciousness itself. If your dreaming mind can maintain connections with external reality while simultaneously processing internal experiences through its own logic, then consciousness might be far more flexible and multidimensional than we've ever imagined. You might be capable of existing in multiple states of awareness simultaneously, each operating through different patterns of coordination, but the implications extend even further. Some researchers have begun to explore the possibility that patterns of correlation in the brain might not be limited to internal networks. Just as particles can become correlated across distances in physics laboratories, the processes in your brain might create connections that extend beyond the boundaries of your skull. This remains highly speculative, of course, but it opens up extraordinary possibilities. If consciousness does operate through interconnected processes, and if these connections extend farther than we currently understand, then individual minds might be linked in ways that we're only beginning to explore. The boundary between self and other, between individual consciousness and collective awareness, might be far more permeable than our everyday experience suggests. As you contemplate these ideas, notice how they might change your relationship to your own thoughts and memories. What if every memory you carry is not just a record of your personal past, but part of a larger pattern of influence and experience that connects you to all the forces that have shaped your life? What if your consciousness is not isolated within your brain, but is part of an interconnected web of relationships that extends in ways you've never imagined? These questions remain at the frontier of scientific understanding, but they point toward a vision of consciousness that is both deeply personal and universally connected. Your individual awareness might be like a unique note in a vast cosmic symphony, distinct and irreplaceable, yet harmoniously intertwined with all the other notes that create the music of existence. Let's explore one of the most elegant aspects of this model: the idea that your brain operates like a cosmic orchestra, with billions of tiny instruments playing in harmony to create the symphony of your awareness. Traditional neuroscience has long focused on the firing patterns of individual neurons, treating them like switches that turn on and off to process information. But this broader perspective suggests something far more subtle and beautiful. Each microtubule within each neuron might be like a tiny violin, capable of vibrating at specific frequencies that contribute to the overall harmony of consciousness. Recent studies have detected actual vibrations within microtubules, oscillations that occur at frequencies measured in megahertz. These vibrations appear to interfere with each other in complex patterns, creating slower rhythms that correspond remarkably well with the EEG brainwaves used to study consciousness. This discovery might finally explain the mysterious origins of these brainwave patterns that have puzzled scientists since they were first detected. But here's what makes this orchestra metaphor particularly compelling. Unlike a traditional orchestra, where musicians follow sheet music and respond to a conductor's direction, this orchestra appears to be self-organizing. The vibrations in different microtubules become highly coordinated, creating coherent patterns that emerge spontaneously from the interactions themselves. Imagine sitting in a concert hall where thousands of musicians begin playing without sheet music, without a conductor, yet somehow find their way into the most beautiful, complex harmonies you've ever heard. Each musician is listening not just to the musicians nearby, but somehow sensing the rhythm and melody of every other musician in the hall, no matter how distant. This is what might be happening in your brain every moment of your conscious experience. This self-organizing harmony could solve one of the deepest puzzles in neuroscience. How does the brain coordinate the activities of billions of neurons to create unified conscious experience? Classical physics suggests that information can only travel at finite speeds through neural networks. Yet consciousness feels instantaneous and seamless. Some theoretical models use quantum-inspired ideas to explain how your brain might achieve this remarkable coordination. Consider what happens when you recognize a familiar face in a crowd. In a fraction of a second, your visual system processes countless details. The shape of eyes, the curve of a smile, the way light falls across features. Simultaneously, your memory systems retrieve associated experiences, emotions, and contextual information. Your emotional centers respond with feelings of warmth or recognition. All of these processes must be coordinated with extraordinary precision to create the unified experience of recognition. Classical models struggle to explain how this coordination happens so quickly and smoothly. But if these different brain systems are deeply interconnected, then the recognition process could unfold as a single, coherent event, with all the relevant information becoming available simultaneously across the entire network. This orchestra metaphor also offers new insights into the nature of attention and focus. When you concentrate on a particular task or idea, you might be tuning the vibrations in your brain to create more coherent, focused patterns. Meditation and mindfulness practices, which have been shown to create measurable changes in brain activity, might work by training your ability to orchestrate these harmonies more skillfully. As you listen to these ideas, you might notice subtle shifts in your own attention and awareness. This isn't coincidence. The very act of contemplating consciousness might be influencing the patterns in your brain, creating new harmonies that didn't exist moments before. Your awareness is not a passive observer of these processes. It might be an active participant in orchestrating them. Some researchers have proposed that different states of consciousness correspond to different patterns of coherence in the brain. Deep sleep might involve the dissolution of large-scale coordination, allowing individual neural systems to reset and restore themselves. Dreaming might involve the formation of novel patterns that create the fluid, associative logic of dream consciousness. Peak experiences, moments of insight, or states of flow might occur when coherence reaches particularly high levels, creating unusually integrated and harmonious patterns of brain activity. This perspective suggests that consciousness is not something you have, but something you do. It's an ongoing process of orchestration, a continuous dance of coordination and release, harmony and discord that creates the ever-changing symphony of your aware experience. If you enjoyed drifting through these explorations without interruption, members get every episode 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join them whenever you feel ready. But whether you're listening now or later, these harmonies continue their eternal dance, weaving the fabric of consciousness moment by moment. The beauty of this orchestra model is that it suggests consciousness is inherently creative and generative, just as musical improvisation can create entirely new melodies and harmonies that have never existed before. The processes in your brain might be continuously generating novel patterns of awareness, new ways of experiencing and understanding reality. This creativity isn't limited to what we traditionally think of as creative activities. Every moment of consciousness might involve a form of improvisation as your brain explores the space of possible experiences and settles into the particular pattern that becomes your present moment of awareness. You are not just experiencing consciousness, you are composing it moment by moment through the orchestra of your mind. Now let's venture into perhaps the most speculative yet fascinating territory of consciousness. The possibility that your dreaming mind might be connected to something far larger than your individual brain. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness might operate as a kind of interconnected network, with individual minds serving as nodes in a vast system of awareness. This idea emerges from one of the most puzzling aspects of quantum mechanics: non-locality. When particles display correlated behavior across distances, some theorists wonder whether similar forms of coordination could appear in biological systems, though there is no consensus. During dreams, when the normal barriers of waking consciousness are softened, these potential connections might feel more noticeable. Have you ever had a dream about someone and then discovered that they had been thinking about you or had experienced something significant around the same time? While such experiences are typically dismissed as coincidence, they might reflect synchronies that feel meaningful, even if not scientifically verified. This remains entirely speculative, of course, and there's no scientific consensus that such connections exist. But the theoretical framework of quantum mechanics doesn't prohibit the exploration of such possibilities, and some researchers have begun designing experiments to test whether information can be shared between isolated conscious systems under carefully controlled conditions. Consider the phenomenon of collective dreaming that appears in cultures around the world. Aboriginal Australians speak of the dream time, a realm of shared consciousness that connects all living beings. Many indigenous traditions describe dream states where individual boundaries dissolve and dreamers can access collective wisdom and shared experiences. While these traditions are often interpreted metaphorically, they might actually describe symbolic or culturally rooted interpretations of deeper mental processes, which some modern theories suggest could align with features of consciousness that science is only beginning to investigate. The implications are staggering to contemplate. If consciousness does operate through highly interconnected processes, and if these connections can extend beyond individual brains, then every dream might be both deeply personal and universally connected. Your individual dream experiences might be unique expressions of patterns that exist within a larger field of shared imagery and meaning. This could explain some of the universal symbols and archetypes that appear in dreams across cultures and throughout history. If dreaming minds are connected through shared cognitive patterns rather than literal quantum entanglement, then certain patterns and images might emerge repeatedly because they reflect fundamental structures within this collective psychological landscape. Take a moment to reflect on your own dream experiences. Have you ever dreamed of places you've never visited that somehow felt familiar? Have you encountered dream figures who seemed to possess knowledge or wisdom that surprised you? These experiences might reflect access to deep associative patterns that exist beyond the boundaries of your individual memory and experience. Recent research into lucid dreaming has revealed that people can sometimes maintain awareness and even exert some control over their dream experiences. This suggests that consciousness can operate in multiple modes simultaneously: the dreaming awareness that follows dream logic, and the lucid awareness that maintains connection to waking rational thinking. If dreams do involve complex, interconnected mental processes, then lucid dreaming might offer a way to navigate these connections more skillfully. Some interpretations suggest that the strange temporal logic of dreams, where past, present, and future seem to blend together, might reflect the non-linear nature of memory and perception, which some theorists compare to the timeless qualities of quantum entanglement. In physics, correlated particles respond to each other instantaneously, suggesting that such connections might transcend our normal experience of sequential time. Dreams might offer glimpses into aspects of consciousness where linear time gives way to more complex multi-dimensional patterns of connection and meaning. As you contemplate these possibilities, notice how they might change your relationship to your own dream life. Instead of viewing dreams as merely personal psychological phenomena, you might begin to see them as windows into deeper layers of reality, opportunities to participate consciously in the rich interconnected patterns of the mind. This perspective doesn't diminish the personal significance of dreams. If anything, it suggests that your individual dream experiences are simultaneously deeply meaningful to your growth and connected to larger patterns of meaning that span cultures and eras. You are not separate from the universe. You are a unique expression of the universe, becoming aware of itself through the intricate processes of consciousness. The research into quantum consciousness remains in its infancy, but it's pointing toward a vision of mind and reality that is both scientifically rigorous and profoundly mysterious. We may be on the verge of discoveries that will revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, dreams, and the fundamental nature of reality itself. As we near the end of this exploration, remember that these ideas are invitations rather than conclusions. They're ways of thinking about consciousness that might enrich your understanding of your own experience, regardless of whether future research confirms or refines these particular theories. The mystery of consciousness remains one of the deepest puzzles in science, and every perspective we explore brings us closer to appreciating the extraordinary nature of awareness itself. Tonight, as you eventually drift into sleep, your brain will begin its nightly journey into altered states of consciousness. Whether or not your dreams connect you to larger networks of mental patterning, they will certainly unfold according to the remarkable processes we've explored together. The binary communications between brain hemispheres, the quantum vibrations in microtubules, the self-organizing harmonies of consciousness itself. Your dreams are messages written in the symbolic language of your inner mind, communications that bridge the gap between individual awareness and universal patterns of meaning. As you learn to listen to these messages with greater attention and appreciation, you might discover that the boundary between dreamer and dream, between self and cosmos, is far more permeable than you ever imagined. The exploration of consciousness is just beginning, and the discoveries ahead promise to transform not only our scientific understanding, but our lived experience of what it means to be conscious, aware, and connected to the deeper patterns of reality. For those who wish to explore even deeper mysteries, join us next time for the 11th dimension, where you already exist without knowing it. The boundaries between your sleeping and waking mind might be far more fluid than you realize, and recent discoveries suggest that this fluidity operates through mechanisms that connect you to the deeper structures of reality itself. As we continue our exploration into the quantum nature of consciousness, we're about to discover how your brain might be accessing information that exists beyond the conventional boundaries of space and time. Let's venture into one of the most perplexing aspects of consciousness, the relationship between memory and time. When you recall a childhood experience, where exactly does that memory exist? Is it stored somewhere in your brain, like a file on a hard drive? Or might it be something far more mysterious? Recent research suggests that memory might not be stored in specific locations at all. Instead, it might exist as distributed biological and informational patterns, which some speculative models compare to quantum information distributed across networks of microtubules. Information that exists in a state of dynamic potential until the moment of recall. This means that your memories might not be fixed records of past events, but dynamic states that can be influenced by your present state of consciousness. Consider how memories change over time. Each time you recall an experience, it feels vivid and real, yet research shows that memories are reconstructed rather than simply retrieved. Details shift, emotions evolve, and sometimes entirely new elements appear that weren't part of the original experience. Classical neuroscience explains this as the result of neural networks being modified each time they're activated. But quantum consciousness theory suggests something more profound. Memories might exist in multiple potential forms, containing several possible versions simultaneously, until the act of remembering brings one interpretation forward. This quantum view of memory offers a new perspective on the fluid nature of personal identity. If your memories exist in multiple potential configurations, constantly being reconstructed through these processes, then the self that emerges from these memories is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic pattern, continuously recreating itself through the ongoing activity of consciousness. Some interpretations suggest that this dynamic nature of memory might explain certain mysterious phenomena that have puzzled neuroscientists for decades. Have you ever experienced déjà vu, that strange feeling that you've lived through a moment before? Or perhaps you've had the opposite experience, jamais vu, where familiar places suddenly feel completely foreign. These experiences might reflect moments when the multiple potential states of memory become temporarily noticeable to consciousness. During sleep, particularly during REM periods, your brain exhibits patterns of activity that suggest massive reorganization of memory networks. The coherence that maintains your waking sense of continuous identity might partially dissolve, allowing memories to exist in more fluid states. This could be why dreams often contain impossible combinations of people, places, and events from different periods of your life, recombined in ways that follow dream logic rather than linear temporal sequence. As you reflect on these ideas, take a moment to notice how they resonate with your own experience of memory. When you remember something from your childhood, does it feel like you're accessing a fixed recording? Or does it feel more like you're reconstructing the experience anew each time? This reconstruction process might be your consciousness navigating the rich landscape of potential memory states, selecting which version of the past becomes real in this moment. The implications extend beyond personal memory to collective and cultural memory as well. If individual memories exist in multiple potential states, might collective memories shared by groups or cultures operate through similar principles? Some interpretations suggest that certain archetypal images and stories that appear across cultures and throughout history might reflect access to shared symbolic patterns that transcend individual brains. This remains highly speculative, of course, but it offers an intriguing framework for understanding phenomena like the collective unconscious described by Carl Jung. Rather than being mysterious psychological structures, archetypal patterns might reflect deep informational patterns that can be accessed by consciousness under certain conditions. Dreams, meditation, creative inspiration, and other altered states might temporarily dissolve the barriers that normally prevent access to these deeper layers of information. Now let's explore one of the most elegant and mind-bending possibilities in consciousness research. The idea that your brain might operate as a biological hologram, with each part containing information about the whole. In conventional holography, if you break a holographic plate into pieces, each fragment still contains the entire image, just at lower resolution. Some researchers propose that consciousness might work through similar holographic principles, with information distributed throughout the brain in such a way that any region can potentially access patterns stored in the whole system. This holographic model could explain one of the most remarkable features of the brain: its resilience to damage. People can lose significant portions of brain tissue due to stroke or injury and still maintain core aspects of personality and memory. If consciousness were localized to specific brain regions, such recovery would be impossible. But if consciousness operates holographically through highly distributed processes, then the information that defines you might be accessible from multiple pathways. The holographic principle also offers new insights into the binding problem we discussed earlier. How does your brain integrate information from millions of sensory receptors, thousands of memory networks, and countless cognitive processes into the unified stream of consciousness you experience? A holographic system could achieve this integration naturally, with each process containing information about its relationship to the whole. Some interpretations suggest that this holographic organization might extend beyond individual brains. Just as each fragment of a holographic plate contains the entire image, each conscious mind might contain symbolic or informational reflections of larger patterns of consciousness. This could provide a theoretical framework for understanding phenomena like collective intelligence, cultural transmission of ideas, and the apparent synchronicities that sometimes occur between people who are closely connected. Take a breath and consider what this might mean for your own experience. If your consciousness does operate holographically, then every thought you have, every memory you access, every moment of awareness might contain subtle information about the larger patterns of consciousness that you're part of. You might be simultaneously a unique individual and a holographic fragment of something much vaster. This perspective doesn't diminish individual consciousness, but rather suggests that individual awareness is both complete in itself and part of larger wholes. Your unique perspective and experience remain irreplaceable, while also being connected to universal patterns through deeply distributed informational principles. The holographic model also offers new ways to understand learning and creativity. Instead of acquiring information piece by piece and storing it in separate mental filing cabinets, learning might involve developing new holographic patterns that integrate seamlessly with existing knowledge structures. Moments of insight and creative breakthrough might occur when different holographic patterns suddenly align, revealing connections that were always present but previously hidden. As you listen to these ideas, notice how they might shift your understanding of your own learning and creative processes. When you suddenly understand a complex concept or have a creative insight, does it feel like you've added something new to your mind? Or does it feel more like you've discovered something that was already there, waiting to be revealed? Let's delve deeper into the biological foundations that might support consciousness. While the idea of quantum effects in warm, wet biological systems was once considered unlikely, recent research has revealed that nature has evolved sophisticated mechanisms to maintain coherence even in the noisy environment of living cells. The discovery of quantum effects in biological systems began with photosynthesis, where plants achieve remarkable efficiency by using quantum-like energy pathways to explore multiple routes simultaneously. Similar effects have been observed in enzyme reactions, bird navigation, and even the sense of smell. If evolution has harnessed quantum mechanics in these systems, it's not unreasonable to consider that it might also play a role in the most complex biological system of all, the human brain. The microtubules within neurons provide an ideal environment for extremely small-scale processes that some researchers suggest could involve quantum effects. Their hollow, crystalline structure could help maintain coherence, while their organization throughout the neuron creates networks that might support coordinated activity across larger scales. Recent experiments have detected vibrations in these structures, vibrations that occur at frequencies that correlate remarkably well with the brainwave patterns associated with consciousness. But potential quantum-like effects in the brain might extend beyond microtubules. The entire neuron exists in a water-based environment, and water itself exhibits unique molecular properties that could influence consciousness. Some researchers propose that the structure and behavior of water molecules, particularly the hydrogen bonds that give water its unique properties, might create an additional layer of subtle biological processing within the brain. This water-based quantum processing might help illustrate the fluid, associative nature of consciousness. Just as water flows and adapts to the shape of its container while maintaining its essential properties, consciousness may flow through patterns influenced by quantum water networks in the brain, adapting to different neural configurations while maintaining its essential unity. As you contemplate these biological foundations, take a moment to appreciate the extraordinary complexity and elegance of your own brain. Within your skull, billions of neurons are participating in intricate biological and possibly quantum-level processes that create the seamless experience of being you. Water molecules might play supportive roles in forming temporary quantum networks that could contribute to your thoughts and perceptions. Microtubules are vibrating at frequencies that some researchers propose may relate to the brainwaves that correlate with different states of consciousness. This isn't abstract theory. This is what some interpretations suggest might be happening right now. As you process these ideas, as you form thoughts and reactions, as you experience the continuous stream of awareness that makes you uniquely yourself. The quantum biology of consciousness also suggests new approaches to understanding altered states of consciousness. Meditation, psychedelic experiences, near-death experiences, and other non-ordinary states are thought by some theorists to involve changes in the quantum coherence patterns in the brain. Instead of being mere curiosities or pathological conditions, these states might reveal the flexible, multi-dimensional nature of quantum consciousness itself. Some interpretations suggest that practices like meditation might work by training your ability to consciously influence the quantum coherence patterns in your brain. The focused attention cultivated through meditative practice might allow you to stabilize certain quantum states, creating more integrated and harmonious patterns of consciousness. This remains speculative, of course, but it offers a fascinating bridge between ancient contemplative practices and cutting-edge quantum physics. The wisdom traditions that developed meditation, yoga, and other consciousness-altering practices may have intuited principles about the nature of consciousness that we're only now beginning to understand through scientific research. As we near the completion of our journey through the quantum landscape of consciousness, let's explore what these discoveries might mean for the future of human understanding and experience. We stand at the threshold of what could be the most significant revolution in our understanding of mind and reality since the development of quantum mechanics itself. If consciousness does indeed operate through quantum processes, then we might be on the verge of developing technologies that could enhance, expand, or even share conscious experiences in ways that seem like science fiction today. Quantum computers that interface with the quantum processes in the brain could one day be theorized to augment human consciousness, allowing us to access vastly greater computational resources for thinking, creativity, and problem solving. Some researchers speculate that quantum networks connecting human brains might eventually allow for forms of communication that transcend the limitations of language. Instead of trying to translate the rich complexity of inner experience into words, we might be able to share quantum states of consciousness directly, creating new forms of empathy, understanding, and collective intelligence. These possibilities remain highly speculative, and there are profound ethical questions that would need to be addressed before any such technologies could be developed. But the mere fact that such possibilities are beginning to seem theoretically plausible represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of consciousness and its relationship to the physical world. More immediately, the quantum model of consciousness is already beginning to influence therapeutic approaches to mental health. If consciousness does operate through quantum processes, then interventions that affect quantum coherence patterns might offer new ways to address conditions like depression, anxiety, and other disorders of consciousness. Some preliminary research suggests that practices like meditation, which have been shown to create measurable changes in brain activity, might work by influencing quantum coherence in neural networks. This could explain why contemplative practices often lead to improvements in mental health, creativity, and overall well-being. As you reflect on these future possibilities, consider how they might change your relationship to your own consciousness. If your awareness is indeed a quantum phenomenon, then you're participating in one of the most fundamental processes in the universe. Your thoughts, dreams, and experiences are not separate from the quantum realm, but are sometimes described as poetic expressions of it. This perspective invites a new kind of reverence for consciousness itself. Every moment of awareness, every dream, every creative insight might be a unique expression of the universe becoming aware of itself through quantum processes that connect you to the deeper structures of reality. The research into quantum consciousness is still in its early stages, and many questions remain unanswered. We don't yet know exactly how quantum effects in the brain give rise to subjective experience. We don't fully understand the relationship between quantum processes and the classical neural activity that neuroscience has studied for decades. And we're only beginning to explore the implications of these discoveries for understanding the nature of mind, reality, and our place in the cosmos. But what we do know is revolutionary enough. Some emerging interpretations propose that consciousness is not simply an emergent property of classical neural computation, but may involve quantum processes that connect individual minds to the fundamental fabric of reality itself. Your consciousness is not separate from the quantum universe. It can be viewed as one way the universe expresses itself through the extraordinary complexity of your brain. As our exploration draws to a close, let's consider how understanding the quantum nature of consciousness might transform your daily experience of being alive and aware. These aren't just abstract scientific concepts, but insights that could fundamentally change how you relate to your own thoughts, dreams, and moment-to-moment experience of being you. If consciousness does operate through quantum processes, then every moment of awareness could be described metaphorically as a kind of quantum measurement, a collapse of infinite possibilities into the specific reality you experience right now. This means that your consciousness is not passive, but actively participates in creating the reality you perceive, not in a literal or supernatural sense, but through the precise, measurable, quantum processes that we've explored together. This quantum present moment is neither fixed nor random, but emerges from the complex interplay of quantum superposition, entanglement, and decoherence occurring throughout your brain. The thoughts you're having right now, the insights that might be arising as you listen to these words, represent unique patterns of quantum activity that have never existed before and will never exist again in exactly the same way. Consider how this might change your relationship to difficult emotions or challenging thoughts. If these experiences arise from quantum processes that are inherently fluid and probabilistic, then they are not fixed aspects of your identity, but temporary patterns in the quantum field of consciousness. Understanding this might bring a sense of spaciousness to difficult experiences, knowing that they represent just one possible configuration of quantum states that is already beginning to evolve into something else. The quantum nature of consciousness also suggests new ways to understand the relationship between effort and spontaneity in creative and spiritual practices. If consciousness involves quantum processes that are both determined and probabilistic, then there might be an optimal balance between intentional effort and relaxed receptivity that allows quantum creativity to flourish. Many artists, writers, and spiritual practitioners describe their most profound experiences as involving a kind of letting go, an allowing of something larger than their ordinary ego mind to express itself through them. This might reflect moments when the quantum processes of consciousness are allowed to operate with less interference from the classical, goal-oriented aspects of mental activity. As you sit with these ideas, take a moment to notice your own present moment experience. Can you sense the fluid, dynamic quality of awareness itself? Can you detect the subtle ways in which thoughts and perceptions arise, shift, and dissolve back into the quantum field of consciousness? This isn't about trying to control or manipulate your experience, but about developing a more intimate appreciation for the extraordinary processes that create your moment-to-moment reality. Every breath you take, every thought that arises, every sensation you perceive might be a unique expression of quantum consciousness, exploring the infinite possibilities of being aware. The implications extend to how we understand death and the continuation of consciousness. If consciousness does operate through quantum processes, and if quantum information can persist in various forms, even after the classical neural activity of the brain ceases, then some theorists suggest that death might not represent the complete termination of consciousness, but rather a transition to a different form of quantum existence. This remains entirely speculative, of course, and there is no scientific consensus on what happens to consciousness after death. But the quantum model does suggest that the relationship between consciousness and physical death might be more complex and mysterious than traditional materialist perspectives would suggest. As we conclude this exploration, remember that these ideas are invitations to wonder rather than definitive answers. The mystery of consciousness remains one of the deepest puzzles in science, and every new discovery seems to reveal new layers of complexity and beauty rather than simple solutions. What we can say with growing confidence is that consciousness is far more extraordinary than we ever imagined. Whether or not future research confirms the specific quantum theories we've explored, the evidence is clear that awareness involves processes that many researchers believe may connect us intimately to the fundamental nature of reality itself. Your consciousness is not an accident or a byproduct of blind material processes, but can be understood as a profound expression of the universe's capacity for self-awareness. through the quantum processes that some researchers propose might be occurring in your brain right now. The cosmos is poetically described by some interpretations as becoming conscious of itself, experiencing its own existence through your unique perspective and experience. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, your brain will begin its nightly journey into altered states of consciousness, exploring the quantum landscapes of dream and deep sleep. The binary communications between your brain's hemispheres will continue their mysterious work, processing the day's experiences through complex biological and possibly quantum-inspired algorithms that we're only beginning to understand. Your dreams will unfold according to the strange logic of quantum superposition, where impossible combinations of memory, emotion, and imagination can coexist and interact in ways that generate genuine insights and creative possibilities. These dreams are not meaningless neural noise, but can be viewed as profound expressions of consciousness, exploring the infinite space of possible experiences. Whether you remember these dreams or not, they represent your participation in what some interpretations describe as the quantum conversation that consciousness maintains with itself, the eternal dialogue between the known and unknown, between individual awareness and universal patterns of meaning. The secret code your brain uses to communicate with you is often metaphorically described as being written in the fundamental language of quantum reality itself. As you become more attuned to this language, you might discover that the boundary between inner and outer, between self and cosmos, between dreamer and dream, is far more permeable and mysterious than you ever imagined. The journey into quantum consciousness has only just begun, and the discoveries ahead promise to transform not only our scientific understanding, but our lived experience of what it means to be conscious, creative, and connected to the vast, intelligent universe that we call home. For those drawn to explore even deeper mysteries of existence and reality, to join us next time as we venture into the 11th dimension, where you already exist without knowing it, where we'll discover how the hidden dimensions of reality might be shaping your experience in ways you've never suspected. Until then, rest well in the knowledge that your consciousness is both intimately personal and cosmically connected, both perfectly ordinary and utterly miraculous, both the result of quantum processes we're beginning to understand, and the source of mysteries that may forever exceed our complete comprehension. Sweet dreams, fellow travellers in consciousness. The quantum universe is often poetically said to be dreaming through you, and your awareness is its most precious gift to itself. As we continue our gentle drift through the quantum landscape of consciousness, let's explore something you've likely experienced but might never have considered in this light: the mysterious phenomenon of intuition. Those sudden flashes of knowing that arrive without logical reasoning, the gut feelings that guide you toward decisions that later prove remarkably wise, the inexplicable sense that you understand something before your rational mind has processed it. Recent research suggests that what we call intuition might be more than just unconscious pattern recognition or emotional wisdom. Some interpretations propose that intuitive insights could emerge from quantum processes in the brain accessing information patterns that exist beyond the reach of classical neural computation. This remains speculative, of course, but it offers a fascinating framework for understanding experiences that have puzzled philosophers and scientists for centuries. Consider the last time you had a strong intuitive feeling about something. Perhaps you met someone and immediately sensed something important about their character. Maybe you walked into a room and felt an inexplicable shift in atmosphere. Or you might have suddenly known the answer to a problem that had been puzzling you for days. These experiences often feel different from ordinary thinking. They arrive complete and whole, like messages delivered from somewhere beyond your usual mental processes. If consciousness does operate through quantum mechanisms, then these intuitive experiences might reflect moments when quantum coherence in your brain achieves particularly high levels of organization. Instead of information being processed through the sequential, logical pathways of classical computation, it might be processed holographically through quantum networks, allowing complex patterns to be grasped instantaneously as unified wholes. Some interpretations suggest that the quantum nature of consciousness might allow access to information that exists in what physicists call the quantum vacuum, the underlying field of potential that permeates all of space. This remains entirely speculative and has no scientific consensus, but it provides an intriguing way to think about how consciousness might connect to larger patterns of meaning and information. Take a moment to reflect on how this perspective might change your relationship to your own intuitive experiences. Instead of dismissing sudden insights as mere guesswork or wishful thinking, you might begin to appreciate them as potential glimpses into the speculative quantum foundations of consciousness itself. Your intuitive mind might be your most direct connection to the deeper intelligence that emerges from quantum processes. This doesn't mean that every passing thought or feeling represents profound quantum wisdom. The quantum interpretation of consciousness suggests that intuitive insights emerge when specific conditions are met. When the mind is relaxed enough to allow quantum coherence to develop, when attention is focused but not forced, when the classical, analytical aspects of thinking are temporarily quieted. Many wisdom traditions have developed practices specifically designed to cultivate these optimal conditions for intuitive insight. Meditation, contemplative prayer, walking in nature, artistic creation. In many cases, these activities seem to create mental states that are conducive to sudden flashes of understanding and creative breakthrough. From a quantum perspective, these practices might work by reducing the neural noise that normally disrupts quantum coherence in the brain. When the constant chatter of analytical thinking subsides, when the mind settles into states of relaxed awareness, quantum processes might have the space they need to organize into the coherent patterns that generate intuitive insights. As you listen to these ideas, notice whether they resonate with your own experience of intuitive knowing. Do your best insights tend to arrive when you're relaxed, rather than when you're thinking hard? Do creative breakthroughs often come when you've stopped trying to force solutions? This pattern might reflect the delicate conditions required for quantum consciousness to operate optimally. The quantum model also offers new ways to understand the relationship between individual intuition and collective wisdom. If consciousness does involve quantum entanglement between different neural networks within your brain, then similar entanglements have been theorized to potentially exist between different brains under certain conditions. This remains highly speculative, but it could provide a theoretical framework for understanding phenomena like group insight, collective intelligence, and the apparent synchronicities that sometimes occur between people who are deeply connected. Some interpretations suggest that practices like group meditation or collaborative creative work might create conditions where quantum entanglements between different minds become more likely. The shared focus, synchronized breathing, and harmonized brainwave patterns that often emerge in group practices might facilitate quantum coherence across multiple nervous systems. This perspective doesn't diminish individual intuitive wisdom, but rather suggests that personal insight and collective understanding might be different expressions of the same quantum processes. Your individual intuitive insights remain uniquely valuable, while also potentially participating in larger patterns of meaning and discovery. Let's venture now into the mysterious realm where consciousness touches creativity, where the quantum processes we've been exploring might give rise to the most distinctly human capacity of all, the ability to bring something genuinely new into existence. Creativity has always been one of the most puzzling aspects of human consciousness. Where do new ideas come from? How does the mind generate solutions, artistic visions, or innovative concepts that have never existed before? Classical computational models struggle to explain true creativity because they can only recombine existing information in predetermined ways. But quantum consciousness offers a different possibility. In the quantum realm, genuine novelty is possible through the collapse of superposition states. When quantum systems exist in superposition, they contain multiple potential realities simultaneously. The act of measurement doesn't just reveal a pre-existing state, it actualizes one possibility from the infinite field of potential. Some interpretations suggest that creative insights might emerge through similar processes in the quantum networks of consciousness. Picture a poet struggling to find the perfect metaphor, or a scientist seeking an elegant solution to a complex problem. Classical thinking might approach this challenge by systematically examining known options, combining familiar elements in logical ways. But the quantum creative process might work differently, exploring superposition states where multiple possibilities coexist until the moment of insight, when one particular creative solution crystallizes into awareness. This quantum model of creativity could explain why breakthrough insights often feel like discoveries rather than inventions. The mathematician who suddenly sees an elegant proof, the artist who envisions a perfect composition, the inventor who grasps a revolutionary design, all describe their experiences as finding something that seemed to already exist, waiting to be revealed. If creative insights do emerge from the collapse of quantum superposition states, then creativity becomes metaphorically comparable to a form of quantum measurement performed by consciousness itself. Your creative mind might be described as exploring parallel possibilities, allowing multiple potential solutions to coexist in quantum superposition until the moment when one particular insight becomes real through the act of conscious recognition. As you contemplate this possibility, notice how it might change your approach to creative challenges. Instead of trying to force solutions through pure logical analysis, you might learn to create the optimal conditions for quantum creative processes to unfold. This could involve entering states of relaxed awareness, where the mind is open to possibilities that haven't yet crystallized into definite form. Many artists and innovators describe their most profound creative experiences as involving a kind of receptive waiting, an openness to inspiration that seems to come from beyond their ordinary thinking mind. This receptive state might be precisely what's needed for quantum creative processes to operate effectively, allowing superposition states to develop and evolve before collapsing into specific insights. The quantum perspective also suggests that creativity might be fundamentally collaborative, not just between different people, but between different aspects of consciousness itself. If your brain does operate through quantum entanglement between different neural networks, then creative insights might emerge from the dynamic interaction between analytical thinking, emotional intelligence, sensory awareness, and intuitive knowing, all operating as an integrated quantum system. This holistic view aligns with research showing that the most innovative solutions often require the integration of seemingly unrelated domains of knowledge. The quantum nature of consciousness might naturally facilitate these unexpected connections by allowing information from different mental domains to become entangled in novel ways. Some interpretations suggest that the temporal fluidity we experience in dreams might offer clues about how quantum creativity operates. In dreams, elements from different periods of your life can interact freely, creating new combinations and relationships that wouldn't be possible in linear time. Similarly, quantum creative processes might allow ideas and insights from different domains of experience to interact outside the normal constraints of logical sequence. Consider the phenomenon of incubation in creative problem solving, where stepping away from a challenge and engaging in unrelated activities often leads to sudden breakthroughs. From a quantum perspective, this incubation period might allow quantum superposition states to develop and evolve without interference from focused analytical thinking. The breakthrough moment might represent the collapse of these superposition states into specific creative insights. This quantum model of creativity also offers new ways to understand collaborative innovation. If consciousness can indeed create quantum entanglements between different minds under certain conditions, then group creative processes might literally involve shared quantum states where insights emerge from the collective superposition of multiple perspectives. The history of scientific discovery provides numerous examples of simultaneous innovations where multiple researchers independently arrive at similar insights around the same time. Rather than mere coincidence, these synchronous discoveries are sometimes interpreted by certain scholars as possibly reflecting shared environmental, cultural, or cognitive factors, and some speculative interpretations propose that they might even hint at access to deeper information patterns that transcend individual minds. As we explore these possibilities, remember that creativity remains one of consciousness's most mysterious gifts, regardless of the specific mechanisms involved. Whether your creative insights emerge from quantum processes or through other means entirely, they represent your unique participation in the universe's ongoing creativity, its endless capacity to generate novelty and beauty. Now let's expand our view to consider how individual quantum consciousness might participate in larger ecological patterns of awareness and intelligence. Just as quantum entanglement connects particles across vast distances, some interpretations suggest that consciousness might be embedded in quantum relationships that extend far beyond the boundaries of individual brains. This perspective invites us to consider consciousness not as something that individual brains possess, but as something that individual brains participate in. Rather like how a musician doesn't own the symphony, but contributes a unique voice to the larger musical creation, your individual awareness might be your contribution to a vast ecology of consciousness that spans multiple scales of organization. Recent research in biology has revealed that quantum effects play crucial roles in many natural systems. Plants use quantum coherence to achieve remarkable efficiency in photosynthesis. Birds navigate using quantum processes that allow them to sense magnetic fields. Some bacteria appear to use quantum tunneling in their metabolic processes. If quantum effects are widespread in biological systems, it's reasonable to consider that they might also connect different conscious beings in ways we're only beginning to investigate. This remains highly speculative, of course, and there is currently no scientific consensus that consciousness extends beyond individual brains. But the theoretical framework of quantum mechanics doesn't prohibit such connections, and exploring these possibilities might enrich our understanding of consciousness, even if they remain unproven. Consider the phenomenon of collective behavior in animal groups. Flocks of birds that turn as one, schools of fish that move like a single organism, colonies of social insects that coordinate complex activities across thousands of individuals. While these behaviors are typically explained through classical communication mechanisms, some interpretations suggest that quantum effects might contribute to the remarkable coordination we observe in nature. If consciousness does involve quantum processes, and if these processes can create connections between different brains under certain conditions, then the collective intelligence we see in human groups might also involve quantum dimensions, the sudden insights that emerge in group discussions, the way creative energy seems to amplify when people work together, the phenomenon of collective problem solving, where groups achieve insights that no individual member could reach alone. All of these might reflect quantum aspects of shared consciousness, according to more speculative interpretations. Take a breath and consider how this perspective might change your understanding of your relationships with other people. If consciousness does operate through quantum processes, then every meaningful interaction you have might involve subtle quantum connections that influence both participants. The empathy you feel for others, the way you can sometimes sense someone's mood or intentions, the mysterious chemistry that develops between people who connect deeply, all of these experiences might have quantum dimensions, at least metaphorically or theoretically. This quantum ecology model also offers new ways to think about the relationship between human consciousness and the natural world. If quantum effects are widespread in biological systems, then the sense of connection with nature that many people report might reflect actual quantum relationships between human consciousness and the quantum processes that animate the living world around us. Some interpretations suggest that spending time in natural environments might facilitate quantum coherence in the brain by reducing the electromagnetic noise and artificial stimulation that characterize modern technological environments. The sense of peace and clarity that often accompanies time in nature might reflect optimal conditions for various biological and possibly quantum-inspired consciousness processes to operate. Ancient wisdom traditions from around the world describe consciousness as fundamentally interconnected with all of life. Rather than being isolated individual phenomena, awareness is seen as a universal principle that manifests through countless particular forms while remaining essentially unified. The quantum model of consciousness provides a potential scientific framework for understanding these traditional insights, though still speculative and not a confirmed scientific theory. This ecological perspective on consciousness also suggests new approaches to mental health and well-being. If individual consciousness is embedded in larger quantum relationships, then healing might involve not just addressing personal psychological patterns, but also restoring healthy connections to the broader ecology of consciousness that we're part of. Practices like meditation in nature, group healing ceremonies, community service, and other activities that foster connection to something larger than individual self-interest might work partly by strengthening the sense of connection or coherence that links individual consciousness to larger patterns of meaning and purpose. As you reflect on these ideas, notice how they might influence your sense of your place in the world. If your consciousness is indeed embedded in a vast quantum ecology of awareness, then your individual thoughts, dreams, and insights are simultaneously deeply personal and connected to the larger patterns of intelligence that animate the cosmos. This doesn't diminish your individual significance, but rather suggests that your unique perspective and experience contribute something irreplaceable to the larger symphony of consciousness. Like a single note in a vast musical composition, your awareness might be both complete in itself and essential to the beauty of the whole. Let's explore one of the most remarkable features of human consciousness: the ability to be aware of awareness itself, to step back and observe your own mental processes as they unfold. This capacity for self-reflection might be one of the clearest examples of quantum processes in consciousness, involving the strange loops and recursive patterns that emerge when quantum systems observe themselves, at least according to certain theoretical viewpoints. In quantum mechanics, the act of observation plays a fundamental role in determining the behavior of quantum systems. The observer and the observed become entangled in ways that make it impossible to separate them completely. Some interpretations suggest that self-awareness in consciousness might involve similar quantum relationships between different aspects of your mental processes. When you notice that you're thinking, what exactly is doing the noticing? When you observe your emotions, what is the observer and what is the observed? These questions point toward the recursive, self-referential nature of consciousness that might emerge from quantum processes observing themselves through the complex networks of the brain. Consider what happens when you become aware that you're dreaming, entering the state of lucid dreaming we discussed earlier. In that moment, one aspect of consciousness, the observing awareness, recognizes another aspect, the dreaming mind, creating a kind of quantum loop where consciousness observes its own processes while remaining embedded within them. This quantum mirror of self-reflection might explain why consciousness feels simultaneously transparent and mysterious to itself. You have immediate, intimate access to your own thoughts and experiences, yet the deeper mechanisms that generate these experiences remain largely hidden from a direct observation. It's like being inside a hall of mirrors where you can see infinite reflections but never quite grasp the source of the reflections themselves. The quantum model suggests that this isn't a limitation, but rather a fundamental feature of how consciousness operates. Self-awareness might emerge from quantum entanglements between different neural networks, creating recursive loops where the observing system is always partially embedded in what it observes. Complete self-knowledge might be impossible, not because consciousness is inadequate, but because complete quantum self-measurement would fundamentally alter the system being measured according to these speculative models. As you notice your own awareness right now, you're participating in this quantum mirror process. The fact that you can be aware of listening to these words, aware of your thoughts about these ideas, aware of being aware, demonstrates the remarkable recursive capacity of consciousness. This self-reflective awareness might be one of the most sophisticated expressions of consciousness in the natural world. Some interpretations suggest that practices like meditation work by training this quantum mirror capacity, developing greater skill in observing mental processes without disturbing them. The mindful awareness that emerges through contemplative practice might represent a refined form of self-observation, where consciousness learns to observe its own processes with minimal interference. This quantum perspective on self-reflection also offers new insights into the nature of personal identity. If your sense of self emerges from processes observing themselves, then personal identity might be more fluid and dynamic than we typically imagine. Rather than being a fixed entity, the self might be a continuously evolving pattern of observation, always creating itself anew through the very act of self-awareness. The implications extend to how we understand psychological healing and growth. Many therapeutic approaches work by helping people develop greater awareness of their mental patterns, thoughts, and emotional reactions. From this perspective, such self-observation might literally change the mental states being observed, creating opportunities for new patterns of consciousness to emerge. If you enjoy drifting through these explorations without interruption, members get every episode 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join them whenever you feel ready, but whether you're listening now or later, these mirrors of self-awareness continue their eternal dance, reflecting consciousness back to itself in ever-evolving patterns of recognition and understanding. The mirror of self-reflection also connects to the phenomenon of metacognition, thinking about thinking. When you plan how to solve a problem, when you reflect on your learning strategies, when you notice your emotional reactions and consider how to respond differently, you're engaging in complex recursive processes that might depend on interwoven layers of mental processing. This metacognitive capacity might be what allows consciousness to be genuinely creative and adaptive. Instead of simply responding to stimuli through predetermined patterns, consciousness can observe its own responses, reflect on their effectiveness, and generate new approaches. This recursive self-modification might be possible because the brain can observe and influence its own activity in ways that classical models sometimes struggle to fully explain. As you contemplate these ideas about self-reflection and self-awareness, take a moment to appreciate the extraordinary nature of what you're doing right now. You're using consciousness to think about consciousness, employing awareness to investigate awareness itself. This recursive capacity represents one of the most remarkable achievements of evolution, and it might depend on processes that connect you to the fundamental self-reflective nature of reality, at least according to some theoretical perspectives. As our journey through quantum consciousness continues, let's explore one of the most perplexing aspects of conscious experience: the relationship between awareness and time. Your experience of time is remarkably fluid, speeding up during moments of intense absorption, slowing down in emergencies, sometimes seeming to stop altogether in moments of profound presence. This subjective time might reflect processes that operate according to different temporal principles than the linear time measured by clocks. In quantum mechanics, time behaves in ways that defy our everyday experience. Quantum entanglement creates instantaneous correlations that seem to transcend temporal sequence. Quantum superposition allows particles to exist in multiple temporal states simultaneously. Some interpretations of quantum theory even suggest that the future can influence the past under certain conditions, though this remains highly speculative in physics. If consciousness does operate through quantum processes, then your subjective experience of time might be more quantum than classical. Instead of consciousness existing in a sequence of discrete moments, it might involve temporal superposition states, where past, present, and future coexist in complex patterns that only occasionally collapse into the linear narrative of ordinary time experience. Consider how memory works in your conscious experience. When you recall a childhood event, it doesn't feel like you're accessing a stored file from the past. Instead, the memory seems to become present, real, immediate, and the emotions, sensations, and details of the remembered experience can feel as vivid as anything happening in the current moment. This temporal fluidity might reflect processes that don't distinguish sharply between past and present states. Similarly, when you anticipate future events, they can feel remarkably real and immediate in consciousness. You might feel anxiety about something that hasn't happened yet, or excitement about possibilities that remain uncertain. This emotional reality of imagined futures might reflect superposition states where multiple potential timelines coexist in consciousness simultaneously. Dreams offer another window into the temporal nature of conscious experience. In dreams, past and future events routinely interact in ways that would be impossible in linear time. You might dream of having a conversation with someone from your childhood while simultaneously being your current age, or experience events that seem to occur in multiple time periods at once. This dream logic might reflect the natural temporal properties of consciousness when freed from the constraints of waking attention. Some interpretations suggest that the present moment itself might be a complex cognitive and possibly quantum-influenced phenomenon, a continuous collapse of multiple possibilities into specific experiential realities. Instead of consciousness passively experiencing a pre-existing present moment, it might actively participate in shaping the present through processes that determine which temporal possibilities become actual. This perspective offers new ways to understand the contemplative emphasis on present moment awareness found in many wisdom traditions. Practices like mindfulness meditation that cultivate attention to the immediate present might work by aligning consciousness with the subtle cognitive and potentially quantum-inspired processes that create temporal reality. Instead of being lost in mental constructions of past and future, awareness learns to participate consciously in the moment-to-moment shaping of the present moment. As you listen to these ideas, notice your own relationship to time. Can you sense the fluid, dynamic quality of temporal experience? Are there moments when time seems to expand, when the present moment feels spacious and unhurried? These experiences might offer glimpses into the complex and possibly quantum-related nature of temporal consciousness, moments when awareness aligns with the deeper rhythms that create the experience of time itself. The quantum music of time might also explain why consciousness feels continuous despite being composed of discrete neural events. Just as individual notes blend together to create a continuous melody, individual moments of cognitive, neural, and potentially quantum-influenced consciousness might blend together to create the seamless stream of temporal experience. The gaps between discrete moments become inaudible in the larger music of conscious time. This quantum temporal model also suggests new ways to understand aging and mortality. If consciousness does operate through advanced or quantum-inspired processes that transcend linear time in a theoretical sense, then the relationship between individual awareness and temporal finitude might be more complex than our ordinary experience suggests. While this remains entirely speculative, it opens up possibilities for thinking about consciousness and time that go beyond conventional material perspectives. The implications extend to how we understand memory, anticipation, and the overall architecture of conscious experience. If consciousness operates through processes that involve temporal fluidity, whether classical, neural, or quantum-like, then every moment of awareness might contain subtle influences from past and future states, creating a rich temporal ecology where linear sequence is just one dimension of a much more complex temporal reality. Let's now explore the mysterious spotlight of consciousness that we call attention. This remarkable capacity to focus awareness selectively, to highlight certain aspects of experience while allowing others to fade into the background, might represent one of the most sophisticated expressions of high-level neural coordination that some theorists describe using quantum-inspired frameworks. Attention is not simply a passive filter that screens out irrelevant information. Instead, it appears to actively shape the reality you experience by determining which potential cognitive possibilities collapse into conscious perception. When you focus your attention on something, you might literally be selecting which aspects of multiple potential mental states become real for your conscious experience. Consider what happens when you suddenly notice a sound that was always there but had faded into the background, like the hum of an air conditioner or the distant sound of traffic. The moment attention turns toward these sounds, they seem to spring into existence, becoming vivid and present. From a theoretical perspective, these sounds might have existed in a state of noticed and unnoticed until attention made them consciously perceptible. This attention-based model offers new insights into the phenomenon of selective attention that psychologists have studied for decades. The famous cocktail party effect, where you can suddenly hear your name mentioned in a conversation across a noisy room, might reflect the brain's remarkable filtering abilities, which maintain multiple potential auditory experiences until something triggers focus toward a particular stimulus. The training of attention through contemplative practices might involve developing greater skill in managing these delicate attentional processes. Meditation practices that cultivate focused concentration might work by enhancing the stability of attention networks, while open awareness practices might expand your capacity to maintain multiple possibilities in a flexible state simultaneously. As you notice your own attention right now, you're participating in this intricate dance. Your ability to focus on these words while maintaining peripheral awareness of your surroundings, your capacity to shift attention between different aspects of your experience, these might all depend on fast integrated neural processes that some models describe metaphorically through quantum-influenced language. The nature of attention also suggests new ways to understand attention disorders and the effects of various attention training practices. If attention does depend on delicate forms of coherence in neural networks, then conditions that disrupt this coherence might lead to difficulties with sustained focus or selective attention. Conversely, practices that support this coherence might improve attentional capacity and flexibility. Some interpretations suggest that the quality of attention might influence not just what you perceive, but how reality itself unfolds in your experience. If consciousness participates in selecting which aspects of the moment reach awareness, then the way you attend to experience might subtly influence which possibilities become real for you, not in a supernatural way, but in how your internal experience is shaped. This doesn't mean that attention can control external reality in magical ways, but rather that the processes of consciousness might participate in selecting which parts of the infinite complexity of each moment become part of your conscious experience. Two people in the same situation might literally experience different realities based on how their attention interacts with the world. The implications for learning and creativity are profound. If attention does influence which possibilities reach consciousness, then the way you attend to learning materials, creative challenges, or problem-solving situations might affect which insights and solutions become available to you. Attention might not just select from pre-existing possibilities, but might participate in shaping new possibilities through its interaction with deep cognitive and theoretically quantum-inspired processes. As we continue exploring these dimensions of consciousness, remember that attention itself is your most direct tool for investigating these processes. By learning to observe your own attentional patterns with greater subtlety and skill, you might develop more intimate familiarity with the foundations of consciousness itself. Let's return to memory with a deeper appreciation for its potential complexity, exploring how your recollections might exist in fluid states that contain multiple versions of past events simultaneously. This dynamic and ever-evolving garden of memory might be far more creative than traditional models suggest. Each time you remember something, you might not be retrieving a fixed record, but rather participating in a process that selects among multiple potential versions. This means that the past, as you remember it, is continuously being shaped anew through the processes of recollection. This more flexible and quantum-inspired model of memory could explain why eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable, why family members can have dramatically different recollections of the same events, and why memories seem to shift and evolve over time. Rather than representing failures of memory storage, these phenomena might reflect the natural properties of memory systems. Consider a childhood memory that has changed over the years, perhaps becoming more vivid in some details, while others have faded or transformed. From this perspective, the memory might exist in multiple potential versions, with different aspects becoming actualized each time you recall the event, depending on your current state of consciousness and the context of remembering. The emotional dimension of memory might be particularly fluid. The feelings associated with past events often seem more dynamic and contextual than factual details. The same memory might evoke different emotions depending on your current life situation, relationships, and overall emotional state. This emotional fluidity might reflect the interplay between memory networks, present moment awareness, and the broader cognitive environment. As we drift deeper into the mystery of theoretical quantum consciousness, let's explore what might be happening during those 8 hours each night when your ordinary waking awareness dissolves into the fluid world of sleep. Far from being a simple shutdown of consciousness, sleep might represent your brain's nightly journey into deeper processing states, where the classical constraints of waking thought give way to more flexible, exploratory modes of awareness. Recent research has revealed that during different stages of sleep, your brain exhibits patterns of activity that seem almost designed to coordinate large-scale information processing. The slow, synchronized waves of deep sleep might create ideal conditions for integration across neural networks, while the rapid, chaotic activity of REM sleep might represent moments when fluid cognitive states collapse into the vivid narratives we experience as dreams. Some interpretations suggest that the transition from waking to sleeping consciousness might involve a shift in how information is processed. During waking hours, the constant input from your senses and the demands of focused attention might limit large-scale coherence. But as you drift into sleep, these external constraints fade away, allowing deeper processes to organize themselves into larger, more integrated patterns. Consider what happens during that liminal moment between waking and sleeping, when thoughts become fluid and dreamlike, when logic gives way to association, when the boundaries of your ordinary identity begin to soften. This transition might reflect the gradual emergence of more flexible, loosely coherent processing states, as the classical neural patterns that maintain your waking sense of self begin to shift. The phenomenon of hypnagogic hallucinations, those strange images and sensations that sometimes occur as you're falling asleep, might offer glimpses into this transitional state. These experiences often have a quality that's distinct from both waking perception and dreaming, suggesting they might emerge from intermediate states where consciousness exists between different modes of processing. As you reflect on your own experience of falling asleep, you might notice this gradual dissolution of ordinary thinking patterns. The logical connections that normally govern your thoughts begin to loosen, allowing unexpected associations and images to emerge. From a more speculative perspective, this might represent the natural tendency of the mind to explore multiple possibilities when freed from the constraints of focused attention. During deep sleep, your brain exhibits some of its most synchronized activity, with waves of electrical activity sweeping across the entire cortex in slow, rhythmic patterns. These synchronized oscillations might create optimal conditions for large-scale integration across neural networks, potentially allowing for forms of information processing that would be impossible during waking consciousness. Some research suggests that this deep sleep processing might be crucial for memory consolidation, creativity, and problem solving. The mysterious way that difficult problems sometimes resolve themselves overnight, or that creative insights emerge after a good night's sleep, might reflect the brain's reorganization of information during these deeply synchronized sleep states. But it's during REM sleep that the nature of consciousness might become most intriguing. The vivid, bizarre, emotionally intense experiences we call dreams seem to operate according to logic that's more fluid than classical reasoning. In dreams, multiple contradictory realities can coexist. Cause and effect become flexible, and time loses its linear structure. These dream characteristics might directly reflect the brain's freer, more associative mode of operation during REM sleep. The fact that you can experience dreams as completely real while they're happening, only to recognize their impossibility upon waking, suggests something profound about the relationship between consciousness and reality. During dreams, your mind might be exploring states where multiple possibilities coexist before crystallizing into specific narratives when dream attention focuses on particular elements. Take a gentle breath and consider what this might mean for your understanding of your own consciousness. Every night, as you drift into sleep, your brain might be embarking on inner voyages that explore possibilities far beyond the reach of your waking mind. The strange symbolic languages of dreams might be your consciousness's attempt to translate these fluid states into something resembling ordinary experience. As our exploration continues, let's venture into one of the most fascinating territories where speculative quantum consciousness research intersects with human experience. The phenomenon of near-death experiences and other profound altered states that seem to transcend the ordinary boundaries of individual awareness. Reports of near-death experiences share remarkable consistency across cultures and individuals, often involving experiences of expanded consciousness, encounters with meaningful figures, life reviews, and profound feelings of unity and understanding. While these experiences remain debated in scientific circles, the quantum model of consciousness offers some theoretical and speculative frameworks for understanding how such experiences might occur. If consciousness does operate through complex, potentially quantum-inspired processes that can exist independently of classical neural activity in hypothetical models, then the relationship between brain function and awareness might be more nuanced than traditional material perspectives suggest. This remains entirely speculative, and there is no scientific consensus on what happens to consciousness during clinical death. But the quantum framework opens up possibilities that merit careful investigation. Some interpretations suggest that during extreme physiological stress, the normal constraints that limit coherence in the brain might be temporarily altered, allowing consciousness to access information patterns that are normally inaccessible. The profound sense of expanded awareness often reported during near-death experiences might reflect temporary access to broader internal cognitive states, or, in theoretical models, larger information fields. The life review phenomenon, where people report experiencing their entire life history in compressed time during near-death states, might be particularly relevant. If memories do exist in distributed networks, then extreme states might allow broad access to these networks, creating the experience of seeing one's entire life unfold at once. A concept explored in speculative models, but not established scientifically. However, it's crucial to note that these interpretations remain highly speculative. Near-death experiences might be entirely explained by known neurological processes occurring in oxygen-deprived brains, hallucinations produced by dying neural tissue, or other classical mechanisms. The quantum perspective simply offers additional theoretical frameworks for understanding these phenomena, not definitive explanations. Beyond near-death experiences, other profound altered states also suggest the possibility that consciousness might transcend its ordinary boundaries under certain conditions. Deep meditative states, psychedelic experiences, mystical experiences that arise spontaneously, all of these sometimes involve reports of expanded awareness that seems to transcend individual identity. From a speculative perspective, these experiences might represent moments when the normal patterns that maintain the boundaries of individual consciousness are temporarily altered, allowing access to more integrated or expansive internal states. The profound sense of unity and interconnection, often reported during such experiences, might reflect temporary access to broader cognitive patterns, described metaphorically through quantum language by some theorists. Again, this remains entirely speculative, and such experiences can be fully explained through classical neuroscience. But the quantum model provides a theoretical framework that takes seriously the idea that consciousness might have layers or dimensions that extend beyond ordinary awareness. As you contemplate these possibilities, notice how they might influence your understanding of the relationships between individual consciousness and larger patterns of meaning and connection. Whether or not consciousness literally extends beyond individual brains, the experiences of expanded awareness and profound interconnection that many people report suggest something important about the deeper potentials of conscious experience. The quantum perspective invites us to hold these possibilities lightly, neither dismissing them as mere hallucination nor accepting them as literal descriptions of reality, but remaining open to the mystery of consciousness in all its dimensions. The boundary between individual awareness and universal patterns of meaning might be more permeable than our ordinary experience suggests, even if we don't yet understand the mechanisms involved. As our understanding of quantum consciousness continues to evolve, we inevitably encounter profound ethical questions about the nature of awareness, identity, and moral responsibility. If consciousness does operate through processes that some researchers interpret through a quantum lens, what does this mean for how we understand personal agency, moral choice, and our responsibilities to other conscious beings? The quantum model suggests that individual consciousness might not be as isolated or autonomous as we typically assume. If these quantum-inspired interpretations do connect different conscious systems, then the boundary between self and other might be more fluid than our everyday experience suggests. This could have profound implications for how we think about empathy, compassion, and moral obligation. Some interpretations suggest that the quantum nature of consciousness might provide a scientific framework for understanding the ethical intuition that all conscious beings are fundamentally interconnected. The golden rule, found in various forms across different wisdom traditions, might reflect an intuitive recognition of deep relational patterns that link all conscious experience. This remains speculative, of course, and these ethical implications don't depend on quantum consciousness theories being correct, but the possibility that consciousness might be fundamentally interconnected through subtle or quantum-inspired processes adds a new dimension to age-old questions about moral responsibility and ethical choice. If your thoughts and intentions do participate in broader psychological or theoretical networks, then the quality of your mental states might have subtle influences on the larger patterns of consciousness you're part of. This doesn't mean that positive thinking directly changes external reality, but it might mean that the coherence and harmony of your inner experience contributes to the overall coherence of larger conscious systems. The quantum perspective also raises questions about the nature of free will and moral responsibility. If consciousness operates through processes that blend structured and unpredictable elements, then human choice might be neither completely determined nor entirely random, but something more subtle and complex. Quantum indeterminacy might provide the space for genuine choice and creative response, while quantum entanglement might ensure that individual choices are embedded in larger patterns of meaning and consequence. This could offer a middle path between hard determinism and complete randomness, suggesting that moral responsibility emerges from the interpretive models of conscious choice itself. As you reflect on these ethical dimensions, consider how they might influence your understanding of your own moral choices and responsibilities. If consciousness is indeed fundamentally interconnected through psychological, social, or theoretical processes, then every choice you make might have subtle influences that extend far beyond your immediate circumstances. This doesn't create additional moral burden, but rather suggests that ethical choice is woven into the very fabric of conscious experience. The quality of attention you bring to each moment, the intentions that guide your actions, the compassion or hostility you feel toward others, all of these might participate in the larger relational dynamics that connect all aware beings. The implications extend to how we think about collective responsibility and social change. If individual consciousness does participate in broader relational or theoretical patterns, then personal transformation and collective healing might be more intimately connected than we typically recognize. Working on your own consciousness might simultaneously contribute to the healing of larger social and cultural patterns. This perspective aligns with many wisdom traditions that emphasize the inseparable connection between personal and collective transformation, but it offers a potential conceptual framework for understanding these ancient insights. The quantum revolution in consciousness studies might be recovering, through rigorous scientific investigation, truths about the interconnected nature of awareness that have been understood by contemplatives for millennia. As we approach the horizon of our exploration, let's consider what these quantum insights might mean for the future evolution of human consciousness. If awareness does operate through subtle processes that some interpret through quantum theory, then we might be on the verge of discoveries that could transform not just our understanding of mind, but our actual capacity for conscious experience itself. The development of quantum technologies that can interface with biological systems opens up possibilities that would have seemed like pure science fiction just decades ago. While we're nowhere near developing technologies that could enhance or expand human consciousness, through quantum means, the theoretical foundations for such possibilities are beginning to emerge. Some interpretations suggest that as we develop more sophisticated understanding of quantum processes in the brain, we might discover ways to support healthier or more coherent mental states, potentially enhancing creativity, intuition, learning capacity, and overall mental well-being. This remains entirely speculative, but the rapid advancement of both quantum technology and neuroscience suggests that such possibilities might not remain science fiction forever. The implications extend beyond individual enhancement to collective consciousness and communication. If consciousness does operate through theoretical quantum relationships, then future technologies might allow for forms of communication that transcend the limitations of language and conceptual thinking. Again, this remains highly speculative, but the theoretical frameworks are beginning to emerge. More immediately, the quantum perspective on consciousness is already beginning to influence therapeutic approaches to mental health, educational methods, and contemplative practices. Understanding the possible quantum-inspired foundations of attention, memory, creativity, and emotional processing might lead to more effective interventions for supporting human flourishing. The research into quantum consciousness also suggests that ancient contemplative practices might have been working with principles that resemble quantum ideas, developing practical methods for fostering clarity, presence, and inner balance. Modern neuroscience is beginning to validate many of the claims made by meditation traditions about the benefits of contemplative practice, and the quantum perspective might help explain why these practices feel so effective for many people. As you consider these future possibilities, notice how they might change your relationship to your own consciousness development. If awareness does operate through subtle, trainable processes, then every moment of mindful attention, every effort to cultivate compassion and wisdom might be contributing to the optimization of coherence in your own conscious experience. The future of human consciousness might depend not on external technologies alone, but on our collective commitment to understanding and developing the potentials that already exist within every conscious being. The greatest discoveries ahead might emerge not from laboratories and computers, but from the direct investigation of consciousness through contemplative practice and mindful living. This suggests that the exploration of consciousness is not just an academic exercise, but an invitation to participate directly in the evolution of human awareness. By bringing greater attention and intentionality to your own conscious experience, by cultivating states of balance and compassion, by investigating the nature of awareness itself, you might be contributing to discoveries that will benefit all conscious beings. As we near the completion of our journey through the quantum landscape of consciousness, let's return to something fundamental: the sense of wonder that makes conscious experience so extraordinary. This capacity for awe, curiosity, and appreciation might itself be one of the most sophisticated expressions of human awareness, representing moments when consciousness recognizes its own remarkable nature. Wonder often arises when we encounter something that transcends our ordinary categories of understanding, when the familiar world suddenly reveals hidden depths and connections. From a quantum-inspired perspective, these moments of wonder might represent temporary access to deeper patterns of meaning that normally remain below the threshold of conscious awareness. The experience of beauty, whether in nature, art, music, or human relationships, often involves a quality of recognition that goes beyond analytical understanding. When you're moved by a sunset, a piece of music, or a moment of human connection, something in consciousness seems to resonate with patterns that it recognizes as fundamentally meaningful, even if it can't articulate why. Some interpretations suggest that these aesthetic experiences might involve a kind of psychological or metaphorical resonance between the patterns in consciousness and the patterns in whatever is being perceived. The sense of beauty might emerge when coherence in your awareness aligns with coherent patterns in the external world, creating moments of recognition and harmony that transcend ordinary subject-object distinctions. This remains entirely speculative, of course, but it offers a framework for understanding why aesthetic experience often feels like a form of knowledge that bypasses conceptual thinking. The direct recognition of beauty might be consciousness recognizing patterns within itself, reflected in the patterns of the world around it. The capacity for wonder also seems intimately connected to the theoretical nature of learning and discovery. The moment when a student suddenly understands a complex concept, when a scientist glimpses an elegant solution, when an artist envisions a new creation, these breakthrough moments often have a quality of surprise and recognition that suggests they emerge from deep cognitive processes, sometimes described metaphorically through quantum ideas rather than strictly linear reasoning. Children seem to have natural access to this wonder, approaching the world with fresh curiosity and openness that allows them to see patterns and possibilities that adults often miss. The process of education might involve not just accumulating information, but learning to maintain access to the creativity and wonder that seem to be natural features of consciousness. As you reflect on your own experiences of wonder and beauty, notice how they might connect to the themes we've been exploring. When you feel awe in the presence of natural beauty, or when you're moved by a profound piece of art, or when you experience moments of deep connection with another person, these moments might simply reveal the mind's natural capacity for insight and resonance, whatever their underlying mechanisms may be. The quantum perspective suggests that wonder isn't just a pleasant emotional state, but a fundamental aspect of how consciousness recognizes its own nature. The capacity for awe and appreciation might be consciousness's way of recognizing the remarkable complexity of its own existence, the extraordinary fact that the universe has evolved systems capable of being aware of themselves and their place in the larger cosmos. This brings us full circle to where we began, with the recognition that consciousness itself is perhaps the most mysterious and wonderful phenomenon in the known universe. Whether or not the specific quantum theories we have explored prove correct, the basic fact remains: you are a system capable of being aware, of experiencing wonder, of contemplating the nature of reality itself. The quantum revolution in consciousness studies is ultimately an invitation to approach your own awareness with greater appreciation and curiosity. Every moment of consciousness represents a unique configuration of mental and possibly quantum-inspired processes that has never existed before and will never exist again in exactly the same way. You are not just observing the universe, you are the universe becoming aware of itself in a poetic, metaphorical sense through the miracle of consciousness. As our exploration draws toward its close, let's contemplate the timeless nature of the processes that might underlie consciousness. If awareness does emerge from fundamental physical or quantum-inspired phenomena, then consciousness participates in patterns that transcend the ordinary boundaries of birth and death, connecting individual experience to the larger dynamics of reality itself. The fields that permeate all of space don't begin or end with individual brains, but represents continuous patterns of potential that manifest through countless forms while remaining essentially unchanging. If consciousness arises from these foundational principles, then individual awareness might be like waves on an infinite ocean, unique expressions of something that has no beginning or end. This perspective doesn't necessarily imply personal survival after death, which remains an open question without scientific consensus, but it does suggest that the processes that give rise to consciousness are themselves timeless and indestructible. The patterns of information and experience that create your unique conscious life are woven into the fundamental fabric of reality itself. Some interpretations suggest that the nature of consciousness might allow for forms of continuity that transcend individual biological existence, though this remains highly speculative. What seems more certain is that every moment of consciousness represents a precious opportunity to participate consciously in the ongoing creativity of the universe itself. The eternal dance of consciousness continues whether or not any particular individual is present to witness it, but your awareness represents a unique and irreplaceable perspective on this vast symphony. The thoughts you think, the love you feel, the beauty you perceive, all of these can be seen as expressions of your mind engaging with the world, however the underlying mechanisms operate. This cosmic perspective on consciousness invites both humility and empowerment. Humility, because individual consciousness is clearly embedded in patterns far vaster than any personal identity. Empowerment, because consciousness appears to be one of the most sophisticated and creative expressions of reality, capable of genuine choice, insight, and transformation. As you sit with these ideas, take a moment to appreciate the extraordinary privilege of being conscious in a universe governed by such intricate laws. The fact that patterns of matter and energy have organized themselves into systems capable of awareness, wonder, and love represents perhaps the most remarkable achievement of cosmic evolution. The dance of consciousness continues in every moment, whether you're paying attention or not, but paying attention transforms you from a passive participant to an engaged collaborator in the unfolding of your own inner life. Every moment of mindful awareness might be a moment of conscious participation in the processes that shape your reality. This is not a burden, but a gift, an invitation to live with greater appreciation for the miracle of consciousness and greater responsibility for the quality of awareness you bring to each moment. In a metaphorical sense, the universe is always in conversation with you, and your awareness shapes how you experience that dialogue. As we prepare to conclude our journey together, remember that these explorations are ultimately invitations to wonder rather than definitive conclusions. The mystery of consciousness remains profound regardless of the specific mechanisms involved, and approaching that mystery with curiosity and appreciation might be more important than solving it completely. The study of consciousness is just beginning, and the discoveries ahead promise to deepen rather than diminish the sense of wonder that awareness deserves. Whether or not your dreams involve quantum-inspired phenomena or your thoughts reflect non-linear cognitive processes, the basic fact remains extraordinary. You are a pattern of matter and energy that has somehow become aware of itself and capable of contemplating its place in the cosmos. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, your consciousness will continue its nightly journey through altered states and dream landscapes, exploring possibilities and processing experiences through mechanisms we're only beginning to understand. Whether these processes are classical or quantum-inspired, biological or metaphorical, they represent your ongoing participation in one of the universe's most profound mysteries. The secret code your brain uses to communicate with you might be described in poetic or metaphorical terms as reflecting the deeper patterns of reality itself. But the most important message is simple. You are here. You are aware. You are part of something vast and beautiful and mysterious. That awareness, however it arises, is a gift beyond measure. Sweet dreams, fellow explorers of consciousness. The universe continues its eternal dance, and your awareness is both its most precious creation and its deepest mystery. Rest well in that wonder, and may your dreams carry you gently through the landscapes of sleep toward whatever insights and experiences await in the morning light. For those drawn to explore how consciousness might extend beyond the familiar dimensions of experience, join us next time as we venture into the 11th dimension, where you already exist without knowing it, where we'll discover how hidden dimensions of reality might be shaping your existence in ways that some theories describe metaphorically through physics and philosophy. Until then, drift peacefully into the mystery of your own consciousness, knowing that every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness participates in the unfolding of your unique life. The ancient mystics spoke of reality as an infinite web of interconnection, where every thought ripples through the cosmos and consciousness itself shapes the fabric of existence. Modern physics has begun to explore concepts that echo these symbolic ideas. But what if the mystics weren't speaking metaphorically? What if consciousness and physical reality are engaged in a conversation so intimate, so fundamental, that the boundary between observer and observed dissolves into something far more mysterious than either science or spirituality has fully described? Welcome to another journey into the quiet mysteries that shimmer just beneath the surface of our everyday experience. I'm your guide through the liminal spaces where science meets wonder, and tonight we're exploring something that might transform how you understand the relationship between your inner world and the cosmos itself. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember that your consciousness will continue its nightly journey through landscapes we're only beginning to understand. The binary patterns flowing between your brain's hemispheres, the vibrations and countless microtubules, the mysterious interactions that create the unified experience of being you, metaphorically described by some as quantum-like, whether literal or not. These processes represent your participation in one of the universe's most profound ongoing experiments, the emergence of awareness from matter, meaning from mechanism, wonder from the fundamental fabric of reality itself. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers in consciousness. The universe continues its eternal conversation, and your awareness remains both its most precious creation and its deepest mystery.